Good evening, sisters and brothers. Welcome to this week's edition of Smart Church Amplified. It is October the 12th, making our way through yet another year. And we thank God that in spite of everything that has happened, some way, somehow, He gave us enough favor, enough grace, and enough mercy to make it through thus far in this year. And so we are always grateful because we know that time, even time, is a gift from God. And we do not understand that our God controls the power of both life and death. Shout out to all of you who are in and already in the chat box saying good evening, good afternoon, what's up, whatever we say to one another. Thank you for letting us know that you are here. And listen, if you are not one to go into the chat box, that is all right with us, just as long as you are with us. That's all that counts, right? Because we come together to learn from one another. And I'm sure that as you are receiving, you are also spreading the word of what you are receiving in these circles. And so we appreciate everybody, even, our new first time visitors. If you hear, we're not going to ask you to stand up or, even virtually, anything like that. We're just glad that you're here. We appreciate you being a part. Yes, you're in the right spot. I don't know if somebody invited you. What's up, Brother Jamar? I don't know if somebody invited you or you stumbled upon us. Whatever is the case, we are grateful, thankful that you are a part. And we never get started without giving a great big shout out to our rebroadcast sisters and brothers, because we know this world is crazy and our times are just spread all over the place. It's hard to connect many times. So the fact that you would make a special effort to see what we're talking about just lets us know how committed you are. And so we really appreciate you. We are moving into the end of the year. And so I just want to let you all know that here at Elm Grove, we're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We are making plans, pulling ourselves together, if you will, to make sure that the year 2023 gains us even more traction and footing as we move forward. All of that being said, I know we didn't come here for preliminary conversation. So let's get into our text tonight. We started a conversation still based upon the theme power, but our theme for tonight is the power of agreement. This idea of coming together in both thought and expression. The power of agreement. And we took a look at it. And I want you to join us tonight. Matthew chapter 18, verse 19. That's our scripture that gives us our base for our conversation. I'm always excited about Smart Church Amplified because this is when we really get into the conversation, really teach one another, and really learn from one another. Matthew chapter 18 and just verse 19, one verse for us tonight is going to be enough. Matthew chapter 18, verse 19 is our text. And in the New International Version, hey, what's up, sister and brother Robillard? Glad to have you all with us as well. In the New International Version, Matthew has Jesus saying, this is Jesus talking. Again, truly I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. Matthew chapter 18, verse 19. Again, truly I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. I would do a disservice. We would do a disservice to one another to pretend as if these verses are somehow disconnected from one another. They are not at all. This conversation is about handling conflict in the church. And these verses, even uh, though they sound as if they're not connected, they really are connected to what to do, the prescription that is laid out starting at verse 15, the prescription that's laid out um, with what happens if there's trouble between the members of the faith community. First go to your sister, brother, and then if they still won't receive you, then get 2 or 3 witnesses and go. And if they still won't receive you, then or receive solution, then go to the church. And then if there's still a problem, then you can't deal with them anymore. Push them away from you. Because there is no intent there for reconciliation. So that's the prescription that's laid out for us. But then when we get down to verses 18 and 19, sounds like Jesus is talking about something else when he's really not. In verse 18, this issue of whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. That's pertaining to the agreements that are made, the solutions that are made, the consensus, if you will. Okay, this is the situation and this is what must be done. And so even then, God is saying, Jesus is saying to us that, what you decide, think of me as being in your midst. Even when we talk about verse 20, this idea, where 2 or 3 are gathered, and we've misinterpreted that so many times. But that's even about, coming together to make a decision about the conflict that is in the church. And the effort is always reconciliation, right? That's what we do, and that's what makes us different. We're not trying to keep the division going. We are trying to pull people together or back together. We even say that at Elm Grove, right? Connecting people to God and connecting people to people. And so even these verses that we have used disconnected, no, they all pertain to how are we going to close this rift? How are we going to help this sister, brother, or these sisters and brothers to get over whatever it is that has them divided? And when we read verse 19, it is still connected, right? Connected to that same conversation. But for our sake tonight, when Jesus says that we, if 2 or 3 will come together in agreement for what they ask of the Father, and His heavenly Father will grant it. We want to pull that out, not out of context. That's why we took the first 5 minutes to do what we were doing, but to talk about the power that God gives us to exercise agreement. If we could get this down, right? And if we could teach this to our sisters and brothers who are in our concentric circles until we are reaching the various parts of our community, one might only imagine what we can accomplish and the social ills that we will destroy, that we'll overcome together when we recognize the power of agreement. You see it just like I see it, and how it is many times. Thank you, Sister Pierce. Yes, reconciliation, reconnect. Yes. So often it seems like everybody's working from their own agenda when we're all supposed to be trying to accomplish the very same thing. And, it is really detrimental to the health of our communities, our families, many times even detrimental to the health of individuals when we can't just seem to come together in consensus, right, about what ought to be done and how we're going to accomplish it. So I wanted to walk it through tonight, right? Uh, and just for our sake, since it's been a while, let's be clear about this issue of power. Power, we say, is authority and ability coming together. The authority that God gives and the ability that God gives coming together. That's what power is all about. Now, I want you to talk to me about this. Add to it if you see fit. Sister Charlene Anthony is on YouTube saying we have to say what we mean in a godly and truthful way and keep it that way. Then God will give us power within ourselves to overcome the situation. Yes, yes, exactly. What's up, Brother Gam? I hope that you're still improving, doing well. You know that we are praying for you, good brother. You and Sister Dorothy. Um, so, uh, part of this power that we have to resist, we say it almost every week now, the principalities, the powers, the rulers of the darkness of this age, the spiritual wickedness in high places. The way we can stand is not necessarily as individuals, but to stand together in agreement. Remember when we had that conversation, we talked about how those descriptions in that Ephesians 6 passage was a description of Roman soldiers, and how it is that when Roman soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder and marched anywhere on any people, the belief in the world was that there was nothing more powerful, right, than the Roman army shoulder to shoulder marching together, agreement. So you can imagine those of us who are in agreement with our omnipotent, all-powerful God, what that would look like, right? If we stop thinking just individuals and we decide to stand shoulder to shoulder, right? Heart to heart, consciousness to consciousness, to stand against the various evils and ills in our society, including, right, disease and disease and dis-ease, including social problems, but also medical problems and financial problems. Imagine what it would look like if we would come into agreement, not for a 10-minute prayer, right? But to come into agreement that, yes, we're going to pray about it because that's important, but then we will do whatever it takes to make it happen because God has given us the authority and the ability to do so. One of the things that we discovered, no, not discovered, that we talked about, and I remember Deacon Lloyd Jones used to talk about this years ago. He'd done a study, and now the world is finally catching up to the study that he'd done. We are in East Baton Rouge Parish here. And what the dominant culture understands that we have yet to understand is that when we vote, when Black people vote, we get whatever we want. We put whoever we want in the seat because we dominate, right? We have the numbers, we have the quantity. We just have to get the quality of thinking such that we don't let people trick us out and talk us out and persuade us out of doing what we need to do for our people. I'll preach that another time. But what we've been conditioned to think, and perhaps it is because we have seen such wrongful use of power, is that we've been conditioned to think that having power is sinful outside of prayer, outside of singing our song, outside of laying hands on one another and speaking in tongues. We think that power is sinful. Sister Daisy Johnson on YouTube said, we as a people would be a force to be reckoned with, strong and powerful nation under God. You got it. That's exactly what I'm trying for to say. That's exactly it. So look, we've been conditioned to think to be powerful is evil. And maybe, fairly thinking that is because we see such evil use of power, right? The misuse of power. But God gives us individual and collective power, right? So what happens is when we hide behind whatever excuse we use, then we allow the world to treat us any kind of way, right? And Zora Neale Hurston said, then they'll turn around and kill you and say you liked it or you wanted it that way. And so we've got to recognize and exercise the power that God gives us, right? I want you to think about how institutions in our community are either under serious attack or already gone, right? Here is one already gone, powerful institution in our community. Now, I won't try to call the names of the old DJs because I'll mess it up completely. But there was a time when the radio was our way of communicating with one another, right? And we all had our favorite DJs, and we liked the music, we danced to the music, so forth. But it was also a way for our community to rally around messages and to rally around a need, what needed to be done. Well, the radio station doesn't exist like that for us anymore because they've destroyed it. Because corporate America has played big bank take little bank with our radio stations, right? So they bought them up. And when they bought them up, they changed the programming completely, right? In fact, I don't know if we're hearing local voices, and I just don't know. Maybe we are, but they're certainly not the messages that we need for us. You know, children need something over here, or whatever the case may be, or we're rallying together for this cause. Those messages don't come across to us anymore. In fact, the last one I can think, and you all helped me with this, you'll remember that Michael Baisden, who used to be on the radio in the afternoon, called the country together and had the country to come down to Gina, Louisiana, to rally for some kids that they felt were facing an injustice system, right? Trumped up charges and all of that stuff. But you also recognize that less than a year later, Michael Baisden was off the air. Now, we call it contract arguments or whatever you want to call it, but they can't have that kind of stuff happening. So that's an institution that's gone. Think about how the education institutions are under attack, and the church institution under attack. By the way, shout out, congratulations, you Capitol High Lions. Glad you got your school back. So now it is up to us to make sure that the children who go there go to a fine institution and live to build even a better institution there. But yeah, education, schools are not hardly in our neighborhoods anymore. And if they are, the children are bussed away from there. I go to my grandmother's house every day. There are 3 elementary schools within walking distance of her house, but the children are bussed away because they made all 3 of those elementary schools magnet schools. Imagine that. Destroying the community institutions is what's happening. And you see it in the church as well. All they're doing is giving us money in our churches and telling us to sing certain songs that don't even sound like us, or to preach. You got to teach to preach. You know, you can't preach to us anymore because the way Massa does it is all of that kind of stuff, right? That's attacking our institutions. And if we don't exercise power, the power of agreement, it'll be done. Sister Yvonne Sutton on YouTube saying we have the power to come together in unity so that we can have a lasting impact on each other. The truth is we need each other. Man, let's get the t-shirt made. The truth is we need each other. I love it. I told you, always pay attention because that's where the real teaching is happening. So that's power. Why is this important? Because this is what, as a people, this is what we are up against globally. This is what we're up against. We're up against, or we are dealing with people, let's put it that way. We are dealing with people in this world who are indoctrinated to believe that if something is good for another people or another person, then it must be bad or detrimental for them. In other words, we're dealing with people. I'm not talking race, I'm talking people. We are dealing with people who think that if you have something, then it must be bad for them, right? And so they've been conditioned. They've been conditioned to steal, kill, and destroy based upon this fear that your having will mean that they can't have, right? So that's why we recognize that greed and a lack of a moral compass, man, that's a toxic and dangerous combination that we have to deal with, right? So that is why we come together in agreement to fight, to strive for the redemption of our sisters and brothers, right? We don't want any of our sisters and brothers to be caught up in those kinds of situations. Here's the next one, and we'll move on. We're dealing with people who've been indoctrinated for centuries to think that anyone other than themselves and people like them, they're not human. Yeah, now I'm talking about our Eurocentric, European sisters and brothers. So if you think about it, if you're not human, and they use fake science, they use fake religion, all of this to support this stuff. If you're not human, then you don't deserve to be treated like human, like you're human, right? We saw it. We saw it all the way back in the 16th, 15th, 16th centuries when they started raiding Africa on the plantations here in the Americas, right? And it's still at work today. That's why Black men are seen as super predators, right? Black, hyped up on drugs. I couldn't do nothing with him, so I had to kill him. I shall never, ever forget, man, I must have been a freshman or sophomore in college. And then I guess about 5'9", but I must have weighed about 150, 160 pounds. A good wind would have blown me away, right? Uh, and on my job, I got on the elevator with a white woman. I'm trying to go to work. I don't know what she was doing, right? And so what happens is when I step on the elevator, you already know, right? Little bitty me. She probably could have beat me up if she tried, but little bitty me. Here she goes. She's clutching that purse. I mean, for dear life, standing in the corner. And do you know, ever since then, if I get on the elevator with a white woman and it's just us, I'm putting my hands in my pockets because you are not going to say I did anything to you because you holler rape, and next thing I know, you all are planning my funeral because I'm a super predator. That's why white men think they can do anything with Black women. Watch them. And if they think we're not watching them, they will try anything with our women because they don't see you as human. And that's why they can play with our children's futures the way they do. But God said, I have given you authority. I have given you authority and ability to stand against such, but you have to come together in agreement. I hope we're still together. So let's talk it through. Jesus said two come together in agreement. Two, just two. You don't need a mob, just two. Because truth is, everybody, I don't care how well the plan or what we're trying to accomplish, how needed the issue that we're trying to resolve, all of that kind of stuff, everybody's not going to be with us. So we don't need a mob. We just need people with the right kind of heart. Sister Charlene Anthony said, get off the elevator. Yes. Brother Donald Lewis on Facebook said, everybody vote for Black. I'm rooting for everybody Black, right? Uh-huh. All right. So look, so we don't need a mob. We just need people with the right kinds of hearts. And history has proven that we're not going to find the right kind of heart with people who think that they have something to lose. Even the ones who look like us should be with us. If they think that they're going to lose something, right, they're not going to be with us. And so Jesus left us a model. Jesus is doing this talking about agreement. And look at who he built the earthly kingdom with, right? Who he started the ministry with, and then they took the baton from him, and then they spread it, and then next thing you know, this thing is out of control. Jesus didn't start with the lawyers, the scribes, the lawyers, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, didn't request a meeting with the governor or the Caesar. Jesus was kicking it with the people who had been damaged by life, right? Hated by their own people, people that were considered unclean. And then if you flip over to the book of Acts, Jesus is off the scene, and things are spreading. You know, gospel is spreading. It's still not the so-called elites, right? No, God has Peter going to deal with people who were not practicing the same religion as he, going to deal with people who were touching dead animals, which was against Peter's religion. You know, all kinds of. God is not concerned about our titles and our positions. God is not concerned about our titles and our positions. God is not concerned about our titles and our positions. God is concerned with, is your heart right? And so when we talk agreement, uh, I'm not speaking in code language, right? I'm not talking about race. We ought to agree with all Black people, like Deacon Lewis was just talking about. No, because everybody with the color is not with us, right? You got to think about who have done some serious damage to us. So I'm not so concerned about your color as I am about your heart. Can we come together? Can we agree? Because our hearts are synced on what is the right thing. And shame on us, right? And shame on us if we cut people out because they're not like us. If men say we can't go with women because they're not like us, got to be all men, right? Or all women, right? Or all left-handed people, or all Black people, or all white people, or whatever the case, right? Agreement is not about skin. Agreement is about how you think, your consciousness. Is your heart pliable, right? Can you exercise sympathy and empathy? Or do you just assume to step over people when they are hurting? Sister Howard said, vote for what's right. There it is. That's it. Cause listen, ooh, this is good. If you really think about it, if you're watching them, they're switching. Democrats are becoming Republicans. Republicans are becoming Democrats. Some of them are becoming independents. You know why? Because for them, it's all the same thing. It's all the same. We are the only ones who are really caught up in these. No, we're not the only ones, but too many of us are caught up in this political party stuff. I love the way Sister put that. I don't care what the party is. The question is, what's right for the people? Because they ain't concerned about party. They switching and going back and forth and all of that stuff. Because for them, it's really about how can I get some more money? Do you only hear from them at election time? Is what Sister May Rice said. I know that's right. Huh. Yeah. So what's the deal with your heart? And that's gonna come up. Just hold on a second. So when Jesus mentioned the word agree in our text, it's the Greek word symphonia, symphonia, SUMPH. Yeah, SUMPHONEO. Hold for 1 second. Don't go anywhere. All right, we back. Uh, and it means to sound together, to sound together. So agreement, if we think about, we get our word symphony from symphonio. Agreement means that we are in harmony. You know, when something sounds good, right? And all of the parts are together and they're all working together. They're all contributing to one another, all of the sounds. Symphonia, and it means to sound together, harmony, or to be on accord, be on one accord. We heard one accord. You want to go back and read Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. You know that one, right? On one accord, in harmony, in agreement. And power came and they went out and changed the world. So what the Greek language tells us there, if you think about what Jesus is saying, that God will respond to the agreement. God responds to the harmony, right? So there is a word by the Dogon people who live in Mali. Mali is where our accountant Maimuna is from in Africa. The Dogon people there have a word uh, that they call nomo, N-O-M-O, just like it sounds, nomo. And it means to make one drink. But what it implies is that the power of words can create harmony even in the face of disharmony. What it says is agreement can only happen if we come together and talk to one another. Sister Charlene Anthony on YouTube says Jesus was talking to 2 or 3 converted Christians, not just any 2 or 3 people. A few ungodly people can cause a war and all kinds of confusion. Our hearts have to be willing to make things right. Thank you for teaching us, sis. Thank you. Brother Lewis wants me to correct what I said. He said, what I'm saying is I vote for Black people, but nothing is changing. I don't vote for you just because you're Black. That's what's up, brother. That is exactly what's up. Yeah. So we cannot come into agreement unless we talk to one another. Now, when people on the wrong side of a situation, they don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it, right? Because one, they're on the wrong side, right? And so they'd rather stay in opposition than to come to some conclusion, or right, when they're on the wrong side, they would rather their misdeeds remain unknown. Think about this. History is showing us, and I'm not talking about millenniums. I'm talking about recent history is showing us this. Look at how they're banning books in the library. Look at how they got a misunderstanding of critical race theory, and they don't want it discussed at all. They don't want race and history, the intersection of race and history discussed at all. I think I told you before, it's because they're going to see their grandparents in the pictures. Think about that. If I don't want to come together and talk, I don't want to come together and reason so that we can be in agreement, because what I did is so egregious, I'm afraid that if it might catch up to me. Let's think about that and how ignorant that is. They don't want it to come out. They don't want it to come out. We all know lynchings. We've all seen the pictures of lynching. Go back and take a good look at the faces of the people who are watching the sister or brother get lynched. Go back and look at the hatred in their faces. They don't want you to see that was their grandmother, their grandfather. And do you know, and even W.E.B. Du Bois writes about this. Do you know that they would carve up the body of the lynched brother or sister or brother, and put and not just make postcards of the pictures that were there, but they would sell the body parts. Du Bois said that one of the things that triggered him in Atlanta, he's walking in Atlanta and passes a store. There's a jar with a part of a man's anatomy that we're not going to say here on in our circle, with a part of a man's anatomy in a jar, like, it's pickled or something, right? That's for sale. They don't want that kind of stuff to come out. They're still teaching hate. You're absolutely right, Sister Wellborn. But No More says, if we can sit down and talk together, we can come to agreement. And agreement is powerful. Look at January 6th. You're absolutely right, Sister Howard. They don't want to talk about it. Think about that. If we can come together and reason and talk, then we can come to agreement. If we come to agreement, there's no force on earth that's going to stop us. All right. I hope we can keep going. When I was a child, all this reminds me of when I was a child playing ball, and you all know how I joke and say I was a little league legend in my own mind. But it was about community. And before every game, coach would call it, each coach would call their team together after the warm-ups and so forth and so on. And this was in every sport that I played. And we stopped doing it in high school. I don't know what happened there. Well, yeah, I do, but we won't talk about that. But coach called his players together, give us a little pep talk, maybe give us the lineup. We'd all take our hats off and say the Lord's Prayer, to be the call and response, somebody be in charge of leading it, to be the call and response, right? And then every team had the same cheer. We all said, all for one, one for all. Then, what we going to do? We going to win. What we going to do? We going to win. But that opening phrase draws me here. All for one and one for all. That's agreement at its height. Because what it says is that the individual is for, let's put it in the context I gave it. The individual is for the team, and the team is for the individual. The individual is not going to let anything happen to the team or his teammates, and the team is not going to let anything happen to the individual. The individual says, I can win with my team, and the team is saying, we can win with every individual. All for one and one for all. That is agreement. That's agreement at its height, if you can kind of picture that. I got your back, said Brother Lewis on Facebook. Yeah. All for one, one for all. I am powerful because I'm with this team. I'm with this collective. But this collective, this group, this community is powerful because the individual is there as well. Man, that says something to us. So here are 3 things I want you to remember about agreement. I hope this is helping. I know what I'm reading in the chat box is helping me. 3 things about agreement. 1, the first thing is, as I just explained, the individual, the relationship between the individual and the community. This does not call for conformity, right? That we all become like robots, that we all act the same, think the same, talk the same. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is everybody brings what they have, brings what their gift. Those of you who listen to Karen Hunter on Sirius XM, she always talks about everybody brings their brick in the building process, right? And so It's not that we want conformity. Everybody has to be like a robot or a zombie. No, that means everybody brings what they have for the whole, and the whole is going to be a blessing to the individual. That's what that's about. So agreement repels conformity. Agreement resists unholy competition. Sister Charlene Anthony say, teamwork make the dream work all day long. Yes, yes. So yeah, the second one is resist unholy competition. If we are in agreement, we are not competing against one another. I'm not trying to top you, and you shouldn't be trying to top me. Haven't you been in those conversations that no matter what you say, you can say, "Man, the sky over here is some blue," and whoever you're talking to will say, "Well, over where I am, the sky is bluer than that." It's just always about competition. I know you know those people. I know it's not you, might be your neighbor, but this is when we in agreement, there is no competition. One of the things that I like to say, man, is that when God uses me to help somebody and they say, man, I want to thank you. Well, I appreciate that, but let's remember, we all on the same team. We are all on the same team, right? This is not a competition. I'm not trying to top you. I want us to rise together. So repels conformity. We're not zombies. We're not robots. This is not a competition. We're together. And the last one is refutes the myth of racial consensus in this world. For our context, agreement says, no, this is not right. And I don't care how much you try to tell me that it is right. Brother Demetri Porter says, I'm from the park, but played for the South Baton Rouge Rams. And we and we were undefeated. Go on and flex on us in here. Yeah, Brother Lewis says, I have your back and you have my back. Yes, yes. So yeah, we're not going to let myths run us. We're not trying to get everybody to act, think, and talk the same. We are not in competition with one another. And we're not going along with propaganda, especially the propaganda of racial consensus. No, things are not right. They're not. This is not a post-racial society like they tried to push down our throats. That is agreement, right? So as I said to you, agreement is really about our consciousness. It's about our heart, right? But agreement requires what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, a free mind, and a free mind that lets us transparently and genuinely communicate with one another. Just as I just mentioned, right? If we can sit down and talk together, right? If couples know that. We can be fighting like cats and dogs, but if we ever calm down and sit down and reason together, we'll come to some solution, to some agreement about what ought to be done next, right? So here we are, and let's take that a little deeper. This idea of sitting together, talking together. I think I mentioned in the last week or so the passage from Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18, when there is, right, a schism between God and his creation. And instead of God destroying, God says through the prophet, come, let us sit together. Let's reason together. That's Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18. And then in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 26, it says, God says again to his people, put me in remembrance. Let us contend or reason or agree. Let us contend together. You state your case that you may be acquitted. Come on, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's come to agreement. It is what our Jamaican sisters and brothers, especially Rastafarians, call grounding. I mentioned Walter Rodney earlier. Walter Rodney was Guyanese professor, history professor, But he lived in Jamaica for a while until they put him out because he wouldn't stay at the university. He kept going out to the masses of people to sit. And Rodney said, "Man, I would sit on old rusty barrels in the city dump, right? I'd sit in the wilderness. I'd sit in the dirt with people, and we would talk. We would ground together, right? And the issue is that it wasn't about Walter Rodney teaching them. It was about the masses teaching Walter Rodney. I want you to hear that, right? Because we can go to the academics, we can go to the hoity-toity, we can go to the titles and the position, and they can give us a superfluous answer to what is happening. But if you really want to know what's going on, right? If you really want to know what's happening, if you really want the answers to the perplexities of life, you don't go to City Hall. You go sit with the sisters and brothers on the front porch. You go talk to the brothers on the corners. You go to the masses and talk to people, right? That's where the answers are. In fact, let me give you this one. Let me give you this one. It just really blew my mind when God shared this with me. When we talk in evangelism, right? Just like Walter said, I couldn't stay in that university. I had to get out. We should, one, you already know, we can't stay in the church. We have to go to the masses. But it is not about us teaching the masses, right? And lecturing the masses about you better get your life together. No. Evangelism would be about going and sitting and learning from them, right? Learning from the people who can't run away from their pain. That's what gives us openings to talk about our God and our faith and what we believe we ought to be doing together. It is probably an invitation to God, right? Or an invitation to God based on where our sisters and brothers sit in their life's experiences, more than it is about inviting people to come sit on a padded pew. Sister Barbara Pierce says, we are fearfully and wonderfully made by our Heavenly Father. So why can't we all get along? I know that's right. Huh. Brother Leonard Hawkins brings up an excellent point as well. It's all right to disagree, but let's not be disagreeable. There it is. Deacon Lewis said you should have come by my grandmother's house. See there? Yeah. Sister Charlene Anthony, in some places, it's called street news for the real story. Yep, that's it. What is the street committee talking about? Because that's where the truth is. I'm with you, sis. Brother Stewart on YouTube is telling us several verses run together here, 15 through 19. The great shepherd has a real concern for us, and it is not to punish, but to restore a sinful disciple. Amen. Let's come in agreement together. Well put, bro. Well put. So it's about let's ground together. We have to talk to one another. And here's another one for you. And don't jump off, don't turn me off. Not only do we have to talk to one another, but we have to talk to the ancestors. I don't mean having a conversation with some spirit. No, that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about sitting with the ancestors and the memories of what they taught us. You know, like when we sit down and go through the old photo album and boy, you remember so-and-so used to talk about that. Yeah. Or it is in what is recorded by the ancestors. How do we learn from W.E.B. Du Bois? But to read his writings, or Marcus Garvey, or you name it, right? Shirley Chisholm, any of them. How do we learn from them? But to sit down with their writings, read their speeches, right? Or those of you who sat here at Elm Grove under J.R. Wood, how do you sit and talk with J.R. Wood? Well, I sit down and I remember sermons he talked about. And I remember on this day he talked about this. And when he talked about that, I couldn't apply it then. But now I'm thinking about it. That ancestor has helped me. I can go back and remember what he said, and now I can apply it to this situation in my life. Sonia Wellborn on YouTube says, we have to know who we are. Yes. She's replying to Sister Barbara. We have to know who we are. That's right. Sister Geraldine Gatlin, it's only a game. Someone wins, someone lose. It's all about togetherness. Oh, she's referring back to my all for one and all for all, one for all. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I love the way Sister Lucille Bazille is in here encouraging us to keep the conversation going. Thank you, sis. Sister Daisy Johnson doing the same thing. Thank you. Right. So we sit and talk to one another. We sit down and we have family discussions. Now it might have to be over Zoom because everybody's living everywhere across this world. But we sit down and we have family discussions with one another as much as we can. Right? We sit and we talk. We talk together. And this is a case where we don't let other people in our conversation. This is not your business. We don't need you to interpret for us who we are, where we've been, and what we have gone through. We need to sit down and talk together with one another right now, right? I know I'm not the only one that every now and then, mother will say, it's time for your friends to go home, right? And that would sometimes mean I need to talk to you, so your little friends need to go. We need to talk now, right? Samuel Lewis Johnson says, Sister Robillard, this person is saying that there's been a fake Facebook account created. You need to go in and check that out. That happened to Dr. Angela recently too. Sister Joyce Robillard is a fake Facebook account using your name and likeness. Go correct that, please, sister. So lastly, thank you for being here with us, for teaching us tonight. Thank you. Reconciliation. I like the way Brother Stewart brought that together for us. Restoration, right? Come into agreement. So what does this do for us? What is the power of agreement? Power of agreement helps us to heal. Helps us to heal, right? From all the stuff that has happened to us, whatever it was. When we can come into agreement, it heals the relationship and it heals us. By the way, if you get time, you should check out a sister named Dr. Joy Degree. And Degree is spelled Degrruy. Joyce Degree, powerful sister who talks about healing among God's people. Joy Degree, Degruy. When we can come to agreement, then we can heal. Here's the next thing. When we can come into agreement, it propels us, right, into the fullness of our potential. We can't really be human if we always walking around in disagreement. We can't fulfill God's favor and calling on our lives. We can't create the community that God, or build the kingdom that God intends for us if we're always in disagreement. So God gives us the power of agreement for restoration. I love the way that Brother Stewart put that. For restoration, for healing, and for fulfillment. Sister Daisy Johnson, talking about when we went to the plantation at the time, at first it was a white person trying to tell us about our people. How you going to do that? Yes, you're absolutely right. This is a discussion we need to have. And even the sister that eventually helped us, if you remember, there were some people in our group who had to tell her some things because she'd been so conditioned by her job. You are absolutely right. Right. These are certain discussions that we have to have with one another because we need the healing. Right. It might be the intimate people in an intimate relationship. It might be friends, might be the family, could be our community, our people. There are are conversations that we need to have together to come to agreement for restoration, again, for healing, and for the fulfillment of our potential. Mm. Brother Warren is challenging us. Thank you for the challenge, brother. So now it is up to us to go out and be the true mentor, a disciple of Christ. I'm done. I'll say less. I'm done. You put the icing on it there, brother. I'm leaving it alone. Um, let's remember, sisters and brothers, to pray for uh, Sister Eunice Phillips and Sister Patricia Hayes, as their sister Kathy Foreman has transitioned. I'm sure we'll be getting arrangements for the celebration of life soon. Uh, we're coming into election season. Don't fall into that stuff that your vote does not matter. It does. Judges, it matters. Who we put in those seats, it matters. Look at how dirty and crooked they did us in this last legislative session and thereof, and did not care that they were being unjust and unfair. And when they did it at the city council, in the state legislature, and on the school board. And so now we got to sue and fight through their system to get what's right. Your vote counts. Please, let's encourage our sisters and brothers to register to vote, and let's come up with a plan of how we're going to uh, hold people accountable. This coming Sunday after our service at 11 o'clock, I'm going over to be the guest speaker at St. Mary Church for their church anniversary. And I would love to see you all there with me if you feel comfortable enough and if you can make it. Uh, this coming fourth Sunday, we're celebrating our cancer awareness, the survivors, uh, celebrating those who succumbed because their lives are not over. We know that they will live forever with our Lord. Um, and just in general, those who are going through, we want to stand with them. And so there are codes out there for colors, for whatever sort of cancer hits closest to home with you. Um, and so let's please wear that color in some way, shape, or form this coming, no, not this Sunday, on the fourth Sunday. And if you confused, you don't know, wear pink somehow, because pink celebrates or no, recognizes breast cancer. And we all know somebody who is dealing, right? Brother Lewis is telling us, please keep the mask, stay apart, wash your hands. Just sent me communication yesterday that we're expecting another surge when the winter months hit. So we want to be vigilant, sisters and brothers. And then don't forget that our sisterhood ministry is hosting a tea on November 19th. And the place is going to be here at Elm Grove. The donation is $10, ladies, $10. And all of the proceeds are going to benefit the children of CASA. And that's the children who are in foster care, who are awaiting adoption. And so this is a fundraiser from our sisterhood to benefit those children. Ashe, Sister Bazil, Ashe. Thank God for all of you. Please be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Peace.